The two kids, the wife, and if the grandkids want to go in, they can go in too. Yeah, give me extra because I don't know the grandkids might walk. Yeah, thank you. 7 to be able to. All right, looks good. Oop. You, I'd like to request that at this time, all electronic devices are turned off or muted. We're here this afternoon at the outset of a new week and in the midst of our Pesach observance, our festival of freedom, our celebration of redemption, to mourn, to commemorate, to honor, and also to celebrate the life of a very special individual, Wilbur Breslin, Zichrono Livracha, a man of most blessed memory, a father, a husband, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, a friend, a business associate, a Jew, a mensch. I'd like to begin by reciting Psalm 23, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me to water in places of repose. He renews my life. He guides me in the right path as benefits his name. Though I walk through a valley of the deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You spread a table for me in the full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my lot all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. I'm Rabbi Michael Stanger. I'm the rabbi here at Old Westbury Hebrew Congregation, a synagogue that Wilbur helped found and support throughout his many years. And it's always been my custom to invite family members to speak first about their loved one. This afternoon will be no exception. So calling up in this order, I'm going to first have his daughter Karen, followed by his son Kenny, and then grandchildren Jessica, Lexi, and Zachary, followed by Justin, Jillian, Jonathan, and finally Beth Alderman and Bill Dumrow. Ready?
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm Papa Willie's daughter. Before I speak about my father, I just want to thank Dr. Richard Schlafmitz, the chief of cardiology at St. Francis Hospital, for his incredible care and treatment of my dad over the years. I also want to thank and send my love to the health aides who went well beyond their responsibilities in caring for him. Thank you, June. I can't find June right now, but thank you, June. And you are the primary care person to Papa, who Papa loved and respected you. And also Anna, Jake, Jobert, Evelyn, Tita, and Jimmy. I need to talk right now to my Papa Willie. Dad, you've always raised me as a child and have always helped and supported me. I love you and need you, always, because I will never leave you and will always hold on to you in my heart. I will always wear these 3 bracelets that you gave me for the rest of my life. For now, to share with all of you, my father was the most important person in my life. He was a symbol of me to everything that was important in life: family, devotion, love, hard work, assertiveness, persistence, and loyalty. Some would describe him as bully Wooly, but we love him. For some reason, when I was a child, he always called me Karinsky. And from my dad, I developed an early work ethic that served me well growing up and in my work life. He always insisted that I actually work and have a job, and because of him, I worked as a receptionist in his office while I was in high school. And then at college, I worked as a paid clerk in a gymnasium just to be able to support myself on campus. And during the summers, I worked at Newsday here on Long Island. And after graduating, I continued at Newsday until my first child, Jessica, was born. And then my father encouraged me to go into his real estate company as a leasing agent. But then real estate wasn't my passion, and I chose to become a psychologist. But of course, he disagreed with my field of psychology and always wanted me to be in his business. However, he accepted the decision for me to leave real estate and become a psychologist. So using the Yiddish expression, it's called Zoi Gatus. It is what it is, that's how it goes. And my dad showed so much empathy for me and respect, and he let me choose my path. But he also always taught me about tennis, dancing, fruits and vegetables. And as a young girl, my dad was a professional tap dancer in the revival of the Ziegfeld Follies, and always had a passion for dancing and always taught me to dance and loved to dance also with Jessica and Lexi. In tennis, which he played when I was around 20, he asked me to play with him, and that's how I started. As far as fruits and vegetables, my grandfather, Grandpa Harry Heschel, started out as a fruit peddler, and my dad joined his business when it developed into 12 fruit and vegetable stores. After Grandpa Harry retired and sold the stores, my dad, not wanting anything from his father's business, started in his own business in residential housing. Working tirelessly, day and night, he was able to get into the commercial shopping center development business, and the rest is history. What my dad has always taught me and the entire family is the art of hard work leads to the art of fine dining, including bagels and lox, herring and creamed onions, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, artichokes, lemons, sausage and peppers, black and blue tuna, and sometimes Carvel cones. But his hard work also led to wonderful vacations with the entire family every year. With Dad's massages on his beach, water skiing for me, and endless hours of tennis with him on vacation. He has always insisted that we will always continue our family tradition. And how that family has grown with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, Papa Willie's greatest joy with his 6 grandchildren, Jessica, Lexi, Zachary, Justin, Jillian, and Jonathan, and 7 great-grandchildren, Lucas, Leo, Teddy, Stella, Harrison, Olivia, and Remy. So, for my dad, he has always paved his way. He loved Frank Sinatra's My Way, and always lived his life that way. So, Dad, you are our family's creator. We are so indebted to you. You did it your way always. You taught me to work hard and play hard, and you also taught us about loyalty to our family. I love you, Dad, and we almost always say, we love you to the earth, the moon, and the stars. Done? Done?
Thank you for all coming. Forgot my iPad in the limos. I never wanted to be in one of those limos. But Dad taught me, be prepared, have a backup. And I do. "39 years. 39. That's how long I've dreaded this moment. I was just out of law school. My dad was turning 60. I remember hearing My Way by Frank Sinatra and thinking, that's my dad. He's doing it his way. I remember wondering, how will I ever honor him appropriately? I'm not Billy Crystal eulogizing Muhammad Ali. If you haven't seen that, you should. But to me, my dad was my champ. He was my Muhammad Ali. So I started writing this 39 years ago, and I started writing this 39 years ago, and always wrote it and threw them out, and I said, this is silly, 39 years. I said, I wanted to be ready when that time came. Nothing I wrote was ever good enough. So I'm standing here now, I realize there's no perfect words for a man like my father, a man who on my 13th birthday asked me what I wanted. I said, "Dad, I want you to quit smoking." He said, "Is that all?" I said, "Yeah." He never, ever had another cigarette. My dad was 60 years old and already a legend, an accomplished developer, Long Island's most recognized retail broker. At one point, Newsday said he was responsible for over 80% of new retailers coming to the island. Think Sears, Kmart, Walmart, McDonald's, The Gap, Lowe's, Stop and Shop, Toys R Us, and more. They didn't just come to Long Island, they came through him. Breslin Realty became a factory producing many of the most successful brokers in this room today, that are in this room today. My dad grew up working in his father's fruit markets. That's where he started. He saw early that what others didn't, that the future was shopping centers built on convenience, visibility, and accessibility. Wilbur hated to hear about market comparable rents because he didn't follow them. He made the rents. He made the market. And that mindset was shaped early on when he met Sam Walton, a moment that was reinforced his belief that there were no limits, just opportunities. But for all his success, there was something that really bothered him. He never went to college, and it mattered. So when he found Hofstra University, he embraced it fully, serving as a trustee for many years. They gave him an honorary degree, and he helped create opportunities for others that he never had himself. He created the Wilbur F. Breslin Center for Real Estate Studies at Hofstra University. That same belief carried into his philanthropy. He and my mother supported Northwell Health since 1977. Most recently, they established the Breslin Family Fellow in Outcomes Research, supporting physicians committed to advancing data-driven medicine. At St. Francis, he made one of his most meaningful contributions, a $5 million gift to establish a cardiology innovation research fund, helping doctors push the boundaries of heart care. He didn't just build places where people lived and worked. He invested in places that helped people live longer. He did struggle with his family balance, and my mother Dorothy was one who held everything together with her patience and grace. Hi, Mom. He was always brilliant with numbers and a natural negotiator. He understood the power of no. And more importantly, that no didn't always mean no. I had to say that, Beth. He worked harder than anyone I've ever known. We used to joke about who was the first to the office after Dad, and how cold was his car's engine, giving us an idea of when he got to work. Even this week, at 3 in the morning, struggling to breathe, he didn't want to go to the hospital. By 6 a.m., he was on the phone, working. He took his last call at 6:30 and his last breath at 7 a.m. That was him to the very end. In his final months, he admitted to me that his thinking wasn't quite what it used to be. He told me I'd have to start making some of the important decisions. And when I did, he'd look at me and say, "You know I still own these properties. I'll make that decision." That was Wilbur. Even then, it was always and still his call. We had our friction, legendary friction, but I loved him deeply, and he taught me everything that matters. Right from wrong, the weight of decisions, the discipline to slow down, to think, to wait. And before he passed, he asked me for one thing: to take care of my mother. Dad, I will. You built an incredible life. You built something that changed Long Island, but more importantly, you built a family. And we will carry that forward your way. Rest in peace.
If you know me at all, you know that the most defining thing about me is how deeply I love my grandparents. And Papa Willie has always lived right at the center of my heart. He left a remarkable professional legacy, but today, I just want to tell you what it felt like to be Wilbur Breslin's granddaughter. My grandpa always had a way of making me feel chosen and special. My birthday was significant for him since his father, Harry, was born on September 18th and passed away on that date. I was born exactly 2 years after Harry passed on September 18th. Papa never saw that as a coincidence. He saw it as something meaningful. In fact, that date was so meaningful that it became his password to, well, just about everything for him. So if I've accidentally cracked the code for anyone here today, I'm sorry, but also you're welcome. Some of my favorite memories with Papa were our annual trips to Mexico. That's where I first understood his credo, work hard, play hard. Even on vacation, he never stopped working. He'd have stacks of files shipped down, and he'd sit on the beach completely focused, covered in sunscreen. It seemed funny at the time, but now I understand. He was doing it so we could all be there. Every hour he worked was a gift he was giving us. The moment office beach hours ended, he was ours. Fully present, fully engaged, saving the very best of himself for his family. Of course, those trips weren't entirely without obligation. We had dues to pay. Chief among them was early morning tennis. It was not optional. And if you didn't get up on time, Papa had a solution, the infamous water treatment, where he would threaten to pour an entire bottle of water on you until you got out of bed. Once on the court, he was fiercely competitive. He would never, under any circumstances, let me win. In fact, he'd start using intimidation tactics to throw me off my game. Things like, kindly watch the footfall. And if I did manage to get a point past him, he would say that I hit it to his blind eye. To be fair, he was actually legally blind in one eye, but like everything else he did in his life, he simply refused to let it stop him. At dinner each night, he would recap our match as if it was a live broadcast from the US Open, delivered with his signature storytelling flair. One of the greatest influences he had on me was his love of great food. He grew up working in his father's supermarket, and it gave him an indelible instinct for quality. He could walk through a market and know immediately whether the tomatoes were worth eating. He'd pick up a Vidalia onion and eat it like an apple. And he had a very clear opinion on corn. It was either good or it was horse corn. He also loved spicy food, and our family would regularly compete to see who could handle the most heat. And without fail, at some point during those contests, Papa would look up, eyes watering, and say, "I just saw my great-grandmother." To this day, every time I eat something that makes me sweat, I hear his voice saying it, and I always will. Papa didn't just take care of our family, he took care of everyone we loved too. He'd take my friends out for dinner and make every person at the table feel like they'd been invited to something special. When he came to visit me in New Orleans during college, he took my entire friend group out for the whole weekend. I'm also pretty sure he wasn't aware the drinking age was actually 21. And wherever we went, people seemed to know him. He had that kind of presence. Sometime later, a business colleague sent him a note. "Willie, what were you doing in New Orleans in a limousine with 12 young broads?" He always brought people together and always made things more fun. Being his grandchild also came with other perks, like famous shopping sprees. When we were little, it started at 7-Eleven. He'd give us 10 minutes, turn us loose, and let us get whatever we wanted. We'd come back with bags of junk food, feeling like we hit the jackpot. As we got older, those outings evolved and got more extravagant, but the feeling never changed. He was so generous, and he genuinely loved giving. Another thing I loved about him was his thoughtfulness. He's the only person I've ever known who would send you a thank you note for the thank you note you sent him. And not just any note, it looked like an official document complete with what felt like a full presidential seal. He wrote to me like that even when I was at sleepaway camp as a young girl. Long, thoughtful letters asking about my life and already planning our next meal together. and every letter was signed the same way, with this caricature, a funny little drawing of himself with sunglasses, wild hair, smoking a cigarette. He told me one day it would be worth millions. I laughed, but now those letters are truly priceless to me. Papa Willie was in every sense larger than life, a legend, a man of extraordinary focus and determination who lived life to the fullest. Someone who worked harder than anyone in the room and stayed on the dance floor the longest. He made each of his grandchildren feel uniquely loved. He celebrated what made us different and made us proud of it. And so, to steal one of his most famous phrases, to make a long story short, while not actually making the story short at all, I will finish by answering a question he used to ask me. Jess, did you ever think you'd have it so good? Papa, I never could have asked for anything more, not a single thing. Even as a child, I knew how good I had it. I felt it in every moment. I think I always believed that you would somehow live forever because you're that much of a hero to me. But I am so deeply grateful for every moment I did have with you. The truth is, no matter how much time we could have shared, it never would have felt like enough. So thank you, Papa, for a million memories that will carry me for the rest of my life. Your legacy lives on in all of us, in the way we eat, the way we love, the way we show up for the people we care about, and the way we refuse to let anything, not even a blind eye, stop us from giving the best of ourselves. You made your mark, Papa, permanently, beautifully, and in my heart it is signed and sealed, just like every letter you ever sent me. I love you.
Papa Willie, how can I possibly put into words the amount of love I have for you? You have shaped every ounce of my being. You are my heart and soul. You love telling stories, so today, in your honor, I want to tell a few. Papa and I love to dance any chance we got. I remember one vacation, closing down a restaurant, doing twirls and dips in his arms. I'm not even sure there was music playing. It didn't matter. Now Lucas, Leo, and Olivia even know his dance moves. The beach is our favorite place. He loved the ocean, the white sand of Anguilla, the strong sun in Mexico. He loved tanning. Papa would rate my tan, which was never quite up to par with his. No one's was. I remember sitting next to each other on the beach, working on our tans, when he'd inevitably take a work call. When he hung up, I'd say, "Papa, relax, you're on vacation." He'd respond, "Some people have to work for a living." As the years went on, I realized Papa truly loved what he did, and he did it until the very end. In the past few years, it became harder for Papa to get to the beach, so I called him every time I was on one. "Papa, I will never stop calling you from the beach." Papa was always honest with me. The first to compliment me if I looked nice, but also the quickest to tell me I was tired and looked like a washed-up rat. It's true, he did. Or to jokingly call me a communist because I chose teaching over real estate. Only Papa could get away with that. Life with Papa was always an adventure. I loved our trips to 7-Eleven as kids when he'd set a timer and we can grab anything we wanted until the time ran out. Over the years, our tastes changed. Candy turned into makeup, makeup into jewelry, but Papa offering anything we wanted never changed. One of my favorite memories with Dee Dee and Papa was when Papa called me and said, "Lexi, we're going into the city for dinner tonight." He wanted to take me to a great restaurant, and despite me only being in high school, preview acceptable venues for my future wedding. We went to the Pierre in the Plaza, and Dee Dee bought me a little stuffy from the Plaza. The decision in my heart was made. Papa had the finest taste in food. I loved going to Scalinatella with him. I remember walking down the stairs and Papa picking decorative tomatoes off the vine and eating them before we even got to the table. He loved good food, and he loved his vodka on the rocks with olives. His love of food was eventually matched by his commitment to longevity. Exactly 1 year to the day before he passed, Papa sent me an email that said, "I would suggest that you and your entire family take heed of this article, as I think it's important for a healthy life and should be a supplement to my past notices." The article was titled, "Eat to Live a Healthier Life." He cared as much about our health as his own. Papa, I will always treasure our phone calls. You loved the gossip. The fourth grade gossip, the second grade gossip, even the pre-K gossip. You were obsessed with your family. Your great-grandchildren loved you deeply, and we're so lucky to have so much time with you. They loved playing slaps with you, hugging you, and seeing how much I loved you. I spoke to our kids this weekend and told them I would be speaking today. When we talked about Papa, Lucas said, "He was always a healthy, nice, helpful man. He always helps others. He was the best person that ever lived." Leo said, "He's the best great-grandpa ever." And Olivia said, "I loved playing with Papa Willie." Papa's smile was unmatched. He was a true class act. He couldn't even accept a thank you note, so he pioneered the "thank you for your thank you note." Papa, I know you didn't want to be in the hospital at the end, but thank you for doing that for us. We got to hold you, kiss you, and listen to Frank Sinatra with you one last time. In your book, you wrote that your legacy is that your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are and will be very comfortable. Papa, thank you for creating this beautiful life for us. We have been so comfortable. Now we just need to learn how to be comfortable in a life without you here. And I promise you we will. I promise we will carry on your legacy. I love you forever, and I will never stop dancing.
Papa Willie was one of the most important figures of my life. For as long as I can remember, I looked up to him, not just for what he accomplished, but for the kind of man that he was. As I've gotten older, I've realized in that so many ways, he shaped the person I am today. One of my most vivid memories of him is from when I was younger. He took me to the Old Westbury Country Club to play tennis and have breakfast. It was just me and him. I remember sitting there, and he told me, very matter-of-factly, that you have to drink your coffee black. Then we went to the locker room, and he walked me through his routine. First a hot steam shower, and then right after, an ice-cold shower. And then on the way home, he had jazz music blasting. He was drumming on the steering wheel like he did not have a care in the world. Looking back, that day seemed simple, but it stayed with me. When I first started drinking coffee, I hated it, but I drink it black anyways. And now, I can't have it any other way. On tough days, I'll take an ice-cold shower, and it always resets me. And I still catch myself drumming along to music in the car, sometimes with my son in the backseat. As I got older, I had the chance to work with Papa Willie for a short time. Work meant a lot to him, as many of you know. and I'm really grateful that I got to see him in that environment. There are a lot of lessons that I took with me from that time, but one has always stuck with me. He told me, if there's something weighing on you, if you're anxious about it, the best thing you could do is tackle it first thing in the morning. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be, and once it's done, you can move forward with your day. To this day, when I get to the office, I try to start with the hardest thing on my plate. For most of my life, I wanted to follow in Papa Willie's footsteps. And I realized pretty early on that his shoes were too big to fill. But as I move forward, I'll keep trying to live up to the example that he set. Papa Willie, I love you.
Papa, you were always fun-loving, caring, and larger than life. Being with Papa Willie was always an adventure. Whether we were out for dinner or hanging out on the beach, you were always the star of the show. To me, my siblings, and my cousins, you felt bigger than life itself. You were already our legend. There was an energy around you, some would say even a presence. When you walked into a room, everyone knew it. People gravitated towards you. You made everything we did feel important and exciting. You made sure to remind us to always take pride in our work and to never rush a major decision. One of the clearest memories from childhood that I have is waking up at the Cuisinart in Anguilla, where Papa would take myself and my entire family for about a decade. Seeing you, I would always be seeing you on the couch at 7 a.m., surrounded by papers, already working. Even in paradise, you never stopped. At the time, I didn't fully comprehend the gravity of what I was seeing. I just knew you were doing something important. But looking back now, I realized that you may not have realized it, but you were setting an example and building a foundation for me to follow in my life. You were relentless, focused, and driven. Like Sinatra, you did it your way. You understood something few people truly do, how to work hard, but also enjoy the little things in life. You built a life where business, family, and joy weren't separate, they were intertwined. Over the last decade, I had the privilege of working alongside you, sitting with you, learning from you, and seeing firsthand the man the rest of the world already knew. A developer, not a builder, a deal maker, and a force in the real estate community. A man who helped shape the communities we live in, bringing in retailers, creating places, and leaving a lasting mark on this island. I never got to tell you how proud it made me when I first started in the business to be able to walk into a room or make a cold call and have people already know my name. It was because of the reputation you built, the respect you earned, and the standard that you set. But what made you truly special wasn't just what you built in business. It was what you built in people, including myself. You believed in family, you invested in people, you gave back, not for recognition, but because that's who you were. Through your philanthropy, your mentorship, and simply showing up for the people you loved, your impact goes far beyond buildings or deals. I stand here proudly to carry that legacy forward into the third generation, along with the rest of my fellow grandchildren. A legacy of grit, determination, instinct, and most importantly, love for family. Papa, you had always asked, who's going to watch the store when I'm gone? I want you to know you don't have to worry. We will all protect what you built with the same ferocity, passion, and pride that you used to create it. And I promise you, the store will always be in good hands. I love you forever, Willie B.
Papa Willie wasn't your typical grandpa. He lived life on a different scale. Always building, always thinking, always creating something bigger than himself for all of us. And along the way, he gave me one of the greatest gifts I could ever ask for. He raised my dad, the most incredible father. When I was younger, I didn't fully understand Papa, but one thing I always knew, without question, was how much he loved me. On our trips to Anguilla, everyone's talking about Anguilla, I guess we really love that place. We'd sit outside at breakfast on the deck, and without fail, he'd look at me and he'd say, "Jillian, don't eat the potatoes." And I'd laugh every time. That was his way, his version of affection, because his love wasn't always expressed directly in his words. It was in how he provided, how he protected, and how he guided us. As we all know, the word no didn't exist in his world. He believed in his way, and somehow he had a way of making everyone else believe in it too. As I got older, something changed. We found our own rhythm, our own relationship. I started to understand him more, and I think he started to understand me too. When I got married this past August, Michael and I moved into his guest house. And in those 6 short months, I learned so much. Not just about him, but about life, about discipline, about taking care of yourself, and about showing up for the people you love. Every night, I'd see him doing his famous laps around the house. His laps were his walks. My dad just wanted me to clarify that for everyone. Where was I? Oh. And if I got lucky, I'd catch one of his basketball games in the kitchen, rolling up tissues and shooting them into a bowl with his dear friend June by his side. It was simple, it was funny, and it was him to his core. While he was a serious man, he always found the little joys in life, dancing, singing, telling overly dramatic stories, and being low-key so in love and obsessed with his wife, my grandma Dee Dee. I will always admire the way Papa took care of himself. He had a level of discipline I have never seen. Every morning, he would weigh himself, do vigorous lung exercises. Where was I? Make sure he got his laps around the house in, all before his workday, which began at 5 a.m. The greatest lesson Papa taught me was the importance of family. As much as he loved his work, he loved his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren even more. Although this has been one of the most difficult weeks of my whole entire life, I found comfort in learning that in the Jewish faith, passing during Passover symbolizes redemption, righteousness, and freedom, a life that is complete and a legacy that continues. That was Papa. Much of who I am and so much of how I love is because of him. See you on the flip side, Papa. Your life will be celebrated through us every single day. After all, the best project he ever built was at home. I love you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of you that was able to attend this service today for my grandfather, Papa Willie. It truly means the world to have you all here. It can take a lifetime for someone to find their perfect match, but I was lucky enough to find mine on day one. Papa Willie to me was more than just a grandfather. He was the rock that kept me grounded, the light that guided my way, the smile that brightened my day, and oftentimes my very own Fred Astaire. But most of all, he was my best friend. Growing up, I always felt I had a special relationship with Papa Willie, that year by year, sunscreen rub down by sunscreen rub down, grew stronger and stronger. For some time, I never really knew why it felt so comfortable to be with Papa Willie. I used to chalk it up to him being my grandfather and all, but it just felt different. As I grew older, I began to understand that we shared something we like to call our spark. My parents and siblings might call it something else, but we called it our spark. I won't get into detail on what our spark was, but if you give his book, For Go-Getters Only, a read, you'll get an idea of what his spark was and maybe why Johnny Carson just couldn't get enough of Papa, following him from the skies in a Concorde to the courts of Wimbledon. To me, to know Papa Willie is to know a phenomenon, a man that is the epitome of tenacity, caring, and grit. A man that no matter the occasion, no matter the difficulty, he'd show up and give everything he had. A man that went from running fruit stands with his father to leaving a legacy that one could only dream of achieving. And a man that had such tall sacks of paper standing behind him at his home office that his grandkids were genuinely concerned for his safety. You could swear he was planning to build some high rises with the amount of papers that was stacked up behind him. Those who knew him, however, knew he did everything with intent. Every spot had its place, every action had its reason, and every meal ended with chocolate ice cream, or tiramisu, or as Papa used to call it, tissamaru. Whether it be getting up at 4:30 in the morning every day to get a workout in, and breakfast in before he starts making his calls at 6, making sure to get his laps in around the house, or bringing his wallets with him on our trips to match every outfit he'd bring. Mind you, some of these trips were 10 to 14 days, but what can I say? The man was classy. Papa Willie, above all, was a man who loved life, loved my cooking, and loved spending as much time with his family as he could. Words cannot describe how much you've impacted my life. I love you, Papa Willie. You will forever be in my heart. May you forever rest in peace.
Hi, I'm Beth Alderman. And my glasses are dirty. Everyone who knew Wilbur Breslin knew how he worked. His relentless attention to detail, his extraordinary negotiating skills, the towering stacks of files in his office, and his marathon storytelling sessions in the large conference room. He was formidable, focused, exacting, charming, philanthropic, and truly larger than life. But those of us who worked beside him knew something more, and behind that reputation was someone else. I met with Wilbur or spoke to him every morning on every workday for nearly 40 years. And yes, there was a pile in his office with my name on it. He always asked my opinion, and when we didn't see eye to eye, he would say, "We're not disagreeing, we're discussing." I was his sounding board and sometimes his conscience. He pushed me to think outside the box, and when I did, he made sure to tell everyone that it was his idea. We didn't just learn how to pick the best deals, we learned how to analyze them midair. There was no pause button with him. You had to think fast, think smart, and be ready. He taught me that nothing is truly a rush, that there is always enough time to make the right decision. But beyond the business discussions, he showed me every day that he cared about me as a person. He asked about my health, my children, my family. He made it clear in every way that I mattered to him. While many will remember his strength, his vision, and the empire he built, I will also remember the man who asked how my family was doing and waited for the answer. That is the side of him that I will carry with me. When my husband Michael, who adored him, became his accountant about 25 years ago, our relationship with Wilbur grew into something deeper than professional respect. Together, Michael and I stood with him, we backed him, we fought for him through challenges and uncertainty. And in return for that loyalty, he embraced us and trusted us, because most of all, it was loyalty that mattered to him. Speaking of loyalty, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our corporate officers who are here today, Bob Rosenberg, Bob Delaval, Laura Valerio, and most importantly to me, Bill Lastock, who have been with Breslin Realty for more than 100 years combined, all of whom built their own relationships with Wilbur, grounded in mutual respect and unwavering loyalty. We also have a terrific group of employees who have also been with us for many years. Some of them leave, and then they all come back. Wilbur taught us all his way, as his family all mentioned, and for the past few years in particular, prepared us for this moment. It is now up to us, with the next generation, to carry that legacy forward. I was lucky. I had a front row seat to Long Island history through the eyes of a visionary. And in the end, what he built wasn't just a real estate portfolio. It was a blueprint for a life well lived. I will miss him dearly.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Domro. Willie Breslin was my best friend. His loss is something that will stay with me the rest of my life. Willie and I first met about 45 years ago on a boating trip that became known very appropriately as the longest day. It's even mentioned in Willie's biography for Go-Getters Only. And if there ever was a title that fit a man perfectly, that was it. Willie was a go-getter in every sense of the word. After that trip, we bumped into each other now and then over the next few years, but about 40 years ago, something changed. We kept seeing each other at the West Hampton Tennis Club, and then we both ended up at Herb Ballin's son's wedding. During the cocktail hour, we fell in love. Now, not that kind of love, but the kind of friendship where you just know it was instant bonding. Willie actually made Herb Ballin move me to his table, and from that day on, we were inseparable. Weekends together meant lying in the sun, drinking an occasional beer, eating pretzels, and having various serious conversations about two important topics: how much color you got and how much you weighed. We had a standing rule whenever we disagreed: no arguments, just a bet, 25 cents. It was never about the money. It was about the act of handing it over, the ceremony of it. We'd write checks to each other, and I actually kept them. In fact, I still have one framed in my office today. That was Willie. He turned even the smallest moments into something memorable. About 25 years ago, Willie and I were walking down the beach in West Hampton. He was 75, I was 57. And out of nowhere, he made me promise him something. He said, "I want you to speak at my funeral because I want everyone to know I had a young friend." And here I am, Willie. I kept my promise, but not so young anymore. We shared so many vacations together over the years. At one point, my wife Melanie and I got interested in cruising. Willie, he had no interest whatsoever. He told us he had been on a cruise once years ago and said, "I gained so much weight I had to leave the ship with my pants open and my shirt hanging out to cover up." That was enough for him. But Melanie called Dottie and said, "Let's go anyway." And Dottie said, "Sure, let's go." And just like that, we started years and years of incredible cruising vacations together, some of the happiest times of our lives. Every February, Willie would come down to St. Thomas for 2 weeks, where I had a condo. He'd stay at the Ritz-Carlton, but we spend the whole day together. Every trip we went fishing, and more often than not, we caught tuna, sometimes up to 60 pounds. And that same evening, we'd be sitting down to fresh-caught sushi. That was Willie. Simple pleasures done perfectly. He loved life like that. And he loved to dance. It didn't matter where we were, a party, a wedding, any gathering, Willie would be out on the dance floor with Dottie, with his daughter Karen, his granddaughters, with anyone. He just loved it. There was a joy in him when he danced that said everything about how he lived his life. He loved to laugh. He was one of the great storytellers. His life had this Damon Runyon quality to it, full of characters, color, and just the right amount of mischief. And it started early. As a boy, Willie performed in vaudeville. Later on, he became a bit of a pool shark in his teens, and even a professional clarinet player. So entertaining people wasn't something he learned, it was something he was. As a young man, Willie worked in his father's fruit and vegetable business. But after carrying a massive box of carrots on his shoulder one day, he had what I'd call a moment of clarity. He decided he was not destined for a lifelong career that required lifting heavy items. So he went into real estate instead. A very good decision, I'd say. There were so many moments that defined Willie, like the time we all decided we were getting too fat. Turned it into the ultimate quarter bet. The loser had to pay for a first-class, all-expenses-paid vacation to Acapulco. On the night of the final weigh-in, Willie showed up having lost a tremendous amount of weight, wearing a bathing suit for the weigh-in. And somehow we still lost the bet. Thank God for Dottie. She was the thinnest of our group at the start and really had little interest in the contest. I had a big sign made that evening that said, "Muchas gracias." And off we went to Acapulco for one of the best trips we ever had. And have I mentioned at Willie's 75th surprise birthday party, I was what you might call the beard. He thought he was just going to a dinner with me and the president of Nassau Community College. At that time, the only exercise Willie really did, other than walking, was squeezing those little rubber balls for his arthritic fingers. So I bought him 2 15-pound dumbbells and started him on an exercise program. And like everything Willie did, he took it seriously. He got into it, stayed dedicated, and kept going. Willie loved a great meal. In fact, one of his favorite questions in life was, "Where are we going for dinner?" He took pride in finding the best places, especially out on the east end of Long Island, with Merco's being one of his favorites. Each year we'd go to the U.S. Open, spend a day watching tennis, then head to an Italian restaurant in Astoria for dinner, and come back for the night session. That was a full Willie day. And then there was family. If there was one thing Willie loved more than a good story, a good meal, or even a good bet, it was his family. Dottie, his partner, his anchor, his greatest teammate, and, we should all acknowledge, someone who operated on her own very flexible sense of time. But Willie learned to live with it. This was part of their rhythm, part of what made them them. And then his children, Kenny and his wife Joy, and Karen and her husband Stephen. Willie was incredibly proud of them, not quietly, in a very Willie way. He talked about them, he celebrated them, and he made sure everyone knew how much they meant to him. And that love only grew with the next generation. His grandchildren, Zachary and his wife Jenna, Alexis and her husband Joshua, Jessica and her husband Jonathan, Justin, Jillian and her husband Michael, and Jonathan, they were a huge part of his life. He followed what they were doing, celebrated their milestones, and made sure they knew how to enjoy life along the way. And then came his 7 great-grandchildren, who brought him an entirely new level of joy. By then, Papa Willie had perfected the role. He wasn't just a grandfather or a great-grandfather. He was a source of fun, stories, laughter, and love, the kind of presence that makes a family feel closer just by being there. What's remarkable is that through all the years, all the trips, all the stories and adventures, family was always at the center. He built traditions. He brought people together. He created moments that will live on in all of you. And that, more than anything, is his legacy. I can tell you this, Willie was one of the kindest, most loyal friends you could ever have. When my first wife, Janice, was sick and we were going through a difficult time, Willie and his whole family showed up. Not just once, not just when it was easy, they were there. That's who he was. He showed up, he cared, and he always did the right thing. At the end of the day, what made Willie so special wasn't just the stories, though there were plenty of those. It was how he made you feel. He made life feel lighter, funnier, fuller. He showed up for his friends, for his family, for life itself. And he did it with energy, humor, and a kind of spirit that you just don't see every day. Willie, you were one of a kind. I'll miss the laughs, the dinners, the bets, the trips, and most of all, I'll miss my best friend. But I'll carry you with me in every story, every memory, and every time I hear someone ask, "Where are we going for dinner?" Thank you.
There's nothing that I could say at this point about Wilbur that hasn't so been beautifully, tenderly, evocatively, and indelibly been said by his friends and family. I do, however, just want to take a moment to read a psalm, because there is a Hasidic custom that every night when a person goes to bed, they recite a psalm, but not just any psalm, because there's 150 of them. They say you recite the psalm that corresponds to your age plus 1, because that represents the number of years you've walked on this earth. So in Wilbur's honor right now, I would like to recite Psalm 100. A psalm for praise. Raise a shout for the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord in gladness. Come into his presence with shouts of joy. Acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us and we are his. His people, the flock he tends, enter his gates with praise, his courts with acclamation. Praise him. Bless his name. For the Lord is good. His steadfast love is eternal. His faithfulness is for all generations. And when I looked at that psalm last night, I thought it was perfect, because you easily could have substituted the name Wilbur Breslin for the praise that we want to shout. And I do want to agree with his granddaughter, Jillian, that I think his greatest legacy, that what he created, it wasn't just all the real estates, it wasn't his professional accomplishments on his resume, it was his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, those who will live on after him and remember him and love him, mourn him, but also celebrate him. His greatest project, truly. And in the immortal words, of course, of old Blue Eyes Frank Sinatra, he did it his way. I know that his yahrzeit will forever be the 15th date of the Hebrew month of Nisan, which is, of course, the first night of Pesach. But in future years, decades, when you get together with your children and your children's children, you'll have a reason not just to mourn, but to celebrate, right? Celebrate the man who really accomplished so much and did so much and brought so much joy to so many people, touched so many people in so many ways, as we celebrate our own redemption and deliverance from slavery. We also can remember a great man who elevated so many others. And what I want to say that was said not by a rabbi or a philosopher or theologian, but of all things, a man who was a professor of sociology at Brandeis University, my alma mater, a man named Maury Schwartz. The book Tuesdays with Maury was written about him when he was foreshadowing his own death due to Lou Gehrig's disease. He said, remember that all the love you create while you walk this earth, all the people that you touch, you're going to live on. Because while death ends a life, it doesn't end a relationship. And that's something we have to truly take to heart. We don't have to allow mourning to perpetually overtake us if we remember how special he was and continue his legacy and the love that he had for us if we pass it down to our children and our children's children from generation to generation. Not everybody gets to live to 99 years. Not everyone gets to live to see great-grandchildren. And not everyone gets to touch so many people as he did. And that's the reason not just to mourn, but to celebrate. Not just for sorrow, but for pride. Even during this festival season, especially during this festival season. I think it probably would have meant something to him to pass away during Pesach, as was pointed out, because it is a time for celebration, a time for commemoration, and a time to remember our legacy. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise. At this time, I'd like to recite in Wilbur's honor the Amalei Rachamim, the traditional funeral dirge, first in the Hebrew and then in the English. Amalei Rachamim shochen bamromim hamitzeh menuchan takana kanfei hashchina b'malo kedoshim etorim kezor kiyamasirim l'nishmat Wilbur ben Heschel Shalach le'olamo b'ganin into menuchato anabal harachamim hastirete b'seta kenafech olamihim utzror b'tzcham shato adonai nachato v'yanuach b'shalom mashkavo v'nomar ahamein. Exalted compassion, God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of our beloved Wilbur Breslin, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May Wilbur's memory endure as inspirations for commitment to his ideals and integrity in our lives. May Wilbur's soul thus be bound up in the bond of life, and may Wilbur rest in a most well-deserved peace. And let us say, Amen. I want to also announce that following the funeral here, the interment will be taking place immediately at Beth Moses Cemetery in Farmingdale, New York. If you're joining the funeral procession, please proceed directly to your cars. We'll be lining up the funeral procession, and the directors will be directing and orchestrating the traffic. We'll be lining up just before we exit the synagogue to be part of the processional itself, and that the family will be sitting Shiva, receiving friends, well-wishers, extended family at Wilbur and Dorothy's home, 30 Wheatley Road, tomorrow and Tuesday from 1 to 4 p.m., and then again 6:30 to 9 p.m. on both of those days with an evening service on each of those days at 7 p.m. The family has also requested that, in lieu of flowers, a donation can be made in Wilbur's name to Island Harvest Charity. And I'd like just to request that all extended family and friends remain standing for just one more moment as the casket is escorted here, processed here to the waiting hearse, but that his immediate family, his children and his grandchildren, have an opportunity to walk along and help escort the casket.